Thank you, Mr. Good. It's a pleasure to hear from you and have you participate, and I thank you so much. And after everything we've heard tonight, it's no wonder that Kamala Harris has been working hard to distance herself from her role as the border czar. Under her watch, more than 10 million illegal aliens have crossed our border. 350 terrorists have been stopped at the border, of which 100 of those were released into the country. And that's just who we know about. Since 2021, more than 200,000 Americans have died from fentanyl overdoses, and enough fentanyl has come into the country to kill 458 million people, more than enough to kill every American alive. More than 300,000 children have been misplaced under the border czar's watch. In fact, she can't even tell you exactly how many are missing, has no idea where they are. All we know is that sometimes you've had an individual sponsor receive as many as 40, 50, 60 unaccompanied children, who we now don't know where they are, and we don't vet the sponsors anyway. But now Kamala Harris wants us to believe that she would be tough on the border, that she would solve the crisis. And why would anyone believe her? What would she do differently than when she was second in command of the executive branch and designated the border czar? Well, the reality is she wouldn't do anything differently. And we know this not only from her record as the border czar, but also from the policies she has supported throughout her career. Let's just recount some of those. For instance, the border wall. She called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project. Not unlike Arizona's, one of Arizona's congressmen, Mr. Gallego, who said it's stupid and useless. But here we have Kamala Harris saying that detention centers need to be shut down, promising to do so if she was president. She has supported measures to reduce detention bed numbers, cut funding for border wall construction. She opposed all of President Trump's effective border policies, including Remain in Mexico and Title 42. And she's even said she supports using taxpayer dollars to pay for sex change surgeries for detained illegal aliens. Now, does that sound like someone who wants to fix the border? Does that sound like a border state prosecutor, which she now aggrandizes herself as she goes around the country campaigning? There should be no doubt that if Kamala Harris is in the White House next year, we will only get more of the same and maybe even worse. If you thought 10 million illegal aliens in 4 years was bad, you just wait. The American people should not be fooled. Now here's talking about not be fooled. Here's what you have from former San Diego Sector Chief Agent Aaron Heitke, who told members of the House Homeland Security Committee on Wednesday that the White House repeatedly tried to fake America out to, quote, quiet the border-wide crisis, close quote. What was she doing? What was the Biden-Harris administration doing? Shielding information from the press and concealing crossings by dangerous migrants with terrorist ties. This is what he said. Quote, I had to release illegal aliens by the hundreds each day into communities who could not support them. To quiet the problem, 2 flights a week were provided from San Diego to Texas. These flights simply brought aliens that would have been released in San Diego over to Texas, each flight costing about $150,000. That's what Kamala Harris border czar did. Not, what else did the administration do? What else did she do to hide what's happening in the border? Well, for one thing, they don't count CBP-1 entrants or the Venezuela, Haiti, Cuba, Nicaragua program as encounters. So when you count and you see the number, you're not going to see that. So what does that mean? That means in the last 15 months, CBP-1 people who've come in and been released into the country under that fraudulent, illegal program, by the way, 815,000. 815,000 just in that program that they don't count. Venezuela, Haiti, Cuba, Nicaragua, 530,000 over the same period of time. 530,000. You wonder why you got trained to Aragua all over the country? By the way, about 6 weeks ago, CBP actually issued from their headquarters to the field offices a notification saying, hey, watch out, Train de Aragua is now embedded in infiltrating the country, but is moving to the northeast part of the United States of America. At the same memo, they said, also be aware that Iran and Iranian proxies are flooding our border with terrorists. That's not Biggs talking. That's Kamala Harris's own administration admitting their failure. How about this? How about this? Jerome Powell, just yesterday, you know who he is, the head of the Federal Reserve. He said, you want to know what's causing rising unemployment? Unfettered illegal migration. That's from Kamala Harris's administration. They appointed Jerome Powell, head of the Federal Reserve. That's what you see from this border. And you know what? I've literally listened to some of my colleagues in our committee say, there's no crisis on the border. There's no problem on the border. El Paso, for instance, is a loving community. We don't have a problem. Well, you know what? We have a problem, not just on the border anymore. Arizona is a transit for illegal migration. Phoenix is a hub for human sex and drug trafficking. We've got multiple interstates going through there, and the illegal migration goes from Phoenix, distributed throughout the country. That's why in Arizona, Texas, California, New Mexico are now not the only states suffering under the rampage of an invasion of illegal migrants. It's every nation, every state, every community. So when you talk about who controls the border, it's the cartels. The cartels control the border. And there are multiple plaza fights going on right now between various factions, some within the Sinaloa cartel in and of itself, going after each other, trying to pick up pieces so they can control the plaza. Yeah, that's what's going on. And why is it going on? It's because this administration refuses to enforce the law. It's going on because when President Biden was elected, within 72 hours, he'd issued more than 100 executive orders, many of which were to basically emasculate the border security policy of the previous administration under Donald Trump, which was so successful. I'm going to give you now, how am I doing time? I'm going to give you now just one quick example. Yuma sector. Last year, Donald Trump was president, fewer than 8,600 encounters. There have been weekends under this administration that they've had 8,600 encounters. Tucson sector, 60,000 per year on average under the previous administration. Under this administration, there have been months nearing 60,000. That's what you have to understand. It isn't just numbers. These numbers represent people who come in here, some with benign intentions, others with malevolent intentions. Ladies and gentlemen, this has got to stop, and it must end now. But this administration refuses to do it. H.R. 2 sits languishing over there in the Senate. It's been there for a year and a half. That is a bill that would bring this to a halt quickly. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back and thank you for your indulgence.